conectando con nuestra comunidad. Esto es ¿Qué pasa Boston?
¿Qué pasa Boston? I'm here with two gentlemen that had exploded my mind. Why? Because they just came out with the best book about AI, but it's not just a regular book about artificial intelligence. It's not going to tell you how to use Claude, how to use Gemini. It's actually about how to be the brain of your business. Did I get it right? We have Chandhu, Nair, and Sravan.
Vadigepalli.
Yes, I got it right. Sravan.
You did. Yeah.
Bienvenidos. Welcome to Boston. Welcome to Qué Pasa. You got to tell me everything. How did this book get started? Where you come from? Who you are? Everything. I want to know it all.
Hey, thank you, Gabby, for having us here. It's actually good to be back in Boston, you know, because I used to live here for about 17 years before I moved out. Live in Charlotte now and work at Lowe's. That's my day job, and which is around leading AI and the tech transformation there. But I think, you know, the book, I think you got it right. It's about how do you build the brain for the business and evolve everything around it. I think the concept of this book, you know, I'm looking at Sravan, came December of 2024. To be precise, because I think we were talking at a different conference in Charlotte. And somebody, you know, came up to us and said, "Hey, you should probably write it down." And we were no writers, you know, so we, you know, so more.
So
lazy
AI
on the
wrote
writing
it.
Side. I wish AI could write it. No, it was. We tried. That didn't work. So we thought about it, and I think late spring of last year, we said, okay, why don't we just write a few pages and see if it sticks? And I think we wrote like 25, 26 pages, and felt good about it. Something about it felt good. It was very real to the problems that we were seeing, you know, because there is a lot of talk in AI when it comes to the tokens and the cloud and the chat GPT. But when it comes to a business, you know, especially a much more of a traditional business that is kind of reinventing itself with AI, the story that is, you know, not often told is, you know, the people aspect of it. How do you rewire a business, especially as you digitize intelligence, you know?
But let's go back, Chandhu, if you don't mind me interrupting you.
Yeah.
I want to tell our audience, because this podcast and this show is all about resources and tools. This is kind of like my go-to since I got it. I bought it, and it's been a very big helpful tool for me. But Sravan, how did you guys meet? Where do you come from? What's your background? Because they're going to say like, oh, these two dudes, they wrote about AI. Okay, so what?
Yeah.
Well, Gabby, thank you for the invite, first of all, and great to be here in Boston this morning. And I will tell, like, Chandhu and I have been in the enterprise space for a long time, and we led data and AI in this ecosystem. Mm-hmm. The whole, like, intent behind the book, Gabby, it's not about, hey, let's go, like, write another book. I mean, we have so many books out there. That's not the point.
Yes.
I think the point is when you think about AI and when you think about all the media around it, a lot of it is either the hype doesn't reflect what happens within the businesses. Like, end of the day, the point of view we wanted to bring in is like, how do we make sure we are thinking about AI in a way that is going to impact the businesses, right?
So you started where? Like, did you go to school to study engineering? Where's the background coming from?
Yeah, we both are engineers in terms of the background.
Uh-huh.
And I was in...
Software engineers?
Yes, I was in retail for a long time. So I was at Best Buy, Target, now at Lowe's. And Chandhu has a...
Same here, engineering, you know, computer science, engineering degree, and then a management degree. Been in the tech space for forever. I'm kind of dating myself, I guess. But, you know, had a startup of my own prior to this, but worked in, you know, large companies like Staples here, you know, and now at Lowe's. But you know, with an engineering mindset, you know, but the, you know, as you think about really about these types of technology transformations, the tech is about 30% of the change.
Yes.
Right. The rest is about driving the change management with the people, and that's been the story that gets less of an attention, to Sravan's point. And our thinking is, as you go through this AI wave of transformation for companies with a core business like
I'm
ours.
going to go very in depth when it comes to the transformation because people think that AI is just an advisor or what they call nowadays an agent, right? So you have to learn how to prompt meaning how to ask the question or ask the task, correct? And then you go into building the back end of your business. As an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and also working for big corporations, I can see the gap between one and the other because it's not just about a question and getting an answer, but it's as how do I solve my problem using this technology? And there's three different things that come to mind right now. And if you don't mind me asking you guys, you're the experts.
Go for it.
One of them is the translation of the coding that we understand, the HTMLs, and like, how do I make a website look so pretty and then at the same time useful? You come from retail, so it's meaning how do you go to the Best Buys and Targets of the world and go online and search your item, it's in the cart, and then you go back. But it's the automation of it, right? And then the second question would be, how can I incorporate that into my business without knowing what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
And here in Boston, we have so many local businesses, yet we are in the world capital of AI with MIT and all these beautiful universities that are teaching us how to do these things. So I'm going to let one question to each of you to answer. What do you think is the right prompt and the right way of using these AI tools?
So I think, Gabby, that's a great question. Let me take a stab at it, and we'll have Chandhu add flavor to it. The way I see it is you need to start somewhere, which means you start with asking AI the basic questions. It could be like, hey, help me with something that I'm looking for. If you're an entrepreneur, maybe you're trying to ideate on the problem statement itself, and maybe you're trying to say, hey, what is the TAM for this problem?
Mm-hmm.
That AI could help you with that, right? Which is great.
Yeah.
And that might get you to information faster. That could be what I call like a spotting partner, right? Helping you think more clearly.
Mm-hmm.
It could also be like a blind spot detector for you, the questions that you might not be thinking,
Yeah.
which is all great, right? That's where we are, let's say, yesterday.
Okay.
I think where you see more value, in my opinion. So I have this framework called 10% to 10x, which is like, hey, if you just ask AI and it comes back with answers and questions, that's 10% of how it is helping you. But the real value for the businesses and for the entrepreneurs is the back-end operation.
Yes.
And how do we think about using AI into your existing processes? And also, how do we reimagine the process? Because this whole notion of, if I just put AI on the process, it is going to get better. And I go, well, you're actually making a bad process run faster, which is not going to get you anywhere, right?
How do I even choose the right AI tool?
So I would frame the question, I would flip the question, and I would say, you focus on the problem.
Yes.
What is the problem that you are solving for? And then you go, if you are a company that is there for, let's say, several number of years, you will have some sort of legacy processes, is what I call.
Uh-huh.
And then you go, okay, do I just bolt AI into this process, or do I completely engineer the process?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's where you start.
Okay.
And then you figure out, okay, I have these players, OpenAI, Claude, or Perplexity, all of these players, they become more of a, when you get to the how piece of it is when you go there. But without doing the work, upfront work of what is the problem, what is the process, you would just fail if you think about the AI as a solution. So that's the approach.
Because you're letting them decide for you mainly, right?
Correct. And if I can expand on that, and we talk about it in the book as well, but if you think about industrial revolution, right, I think the big technology advancement is all the industrial machinery that came in.
Mm-hmm.
But for businesses, what that meant is you had to set factories, you had to set workflows, you had to set new jobs on how to operate the factories. So you kind of rewired the process. The technology itself didn't, create the big opportunity, but that decoupling of the muscle, which is the machinery, for what that meant is the businesses had to evolve the factories and how they set it up. The same happened with the digital revolution. So we call it as a decoupling of the nervous system of the enterprise, right? Because now computers can process a lot more data than a human can at very fast pace. And also with internet, you can, send that around the world. what did that do to the business? That was successful. There was, global manufacturing, global supply chains, logistics, all of that got connected, right? So the business could expand. And we think, the third decoupling is really the decoupling of the brain of the enterprise. So what does the factory of it look like? What does the global supply chain of that look like? That's the rewiring of instead of bolting on, you got to think about like, hey, now this opens up a whole set of white space opportunity for you to grow. And then the tooling comes secondary, but that's the first part to say, hey, what's the white space opportunity here? How do you rewire some of the things that you have to go after those? There's always productivity improvements you can do, but that's to me, the biggest unlock.
So who can take advantage of this book? Is it me, Gabby, that I'm just an entrepreneur with a small business, or is it the big corporation, like you were saying, right? Like you're reimagining or re-engineering the systems and the processes of a global corporation?
I think the way I see it is it's both, in my opinion. And actually, someone like you, Gabby, and the entrepreneur and the businesses, like you all find a lot of value with AI, and you can move faster.
Yes.
The reason for that is you don't have to deal with a 100-year legacy company has to deal with, which is all the people, all the process, and all of the management.
HR.
Right? Well, which is a good thing. We need to have all of that, but you
Yeah.
also have a lot more friction in terms of where you want to go. But if you are like a newer company or thinking about building a new company, now you should think about AI as one of the core variable. For example, let's say you're building a company and your company is selling something. In today's world, you would think about having like a .com website for that. Like that happens to you in your head.
Let's go one step further than that. I have my own agency, as you know, Chandhu, and I deal with all these clients of mine. I'm building a reporting tool for a client of mine. And it's a data reporting tool that brings the bills that are happening in the government. So then if there's any changes on those bills, whether it is opposition or positive, like whatever is happening, it's going to alert the client, right? But at the same time, in that tool, we want to be able to have some strategy. So my client is actually going in there and saying like, okay, let's do these ABC. My question and challenges that I've found is that I love all the tools. I work very closely with Gemini and with Claude, but my fear is the IP. All my data, all my intel is going into these public sources. Who's gonna own my IP? If I want to sell it to my client, how do I confirm that I actually own that IP? And how do you manage it and growing and make it work? Being the brain, right?
Yeah, and that's a super important question, because I think what will differentiate you as a business is the core intelligence of your company as to how you're running it, because every company is different. There is ways of working, small or big, it doesn't really matter. And hence, and what AI is trying to do is to digitize that brain, if you will, right? So hence the name. And now it's important that you keep that as the differentiator. And all the frontier labs, OpenAI, Anthropics, I mean, there is ways by which you can work them, and the book talks about it, by which you can actually protect your enterprise intelligence layer, if you will, separate, and you can make that work in tandem so that you're not sharing all of your secret sauce, but at the same time, the combination of the power of these models that OpenAI or Anthropic or Gemini has, and the combination of your core enterprise brain kind of comes together. They are they're also arm's length apart in the sense that you're keeping the secret sauce the secret sauce.
Yes.
There's technical ways to do it, and it's gotten better and better.
Isn't that scary though for the normal business owner that doesn't even know how to operate a business? Never mind just going into this era of digitalization. And how about my job security? If I develop this intelligence, that it's going to run my business, what do I do?
Yeah, see, I think it's interesting. I think somebody asked this question yesterday, and I was telling you I was at MIT. One of the processors was like, hey, do you get scared that because there is a calculator to do the math, that you would lose your job? Yeah, the answer is no. right? It just makes my job easy.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have to, I think
It's
there
an
is
external.
it is an, so we just have to kind of train our mind that this is, again, something that will augment you very differently, just like the machines did, just like the internet did. That is what AI is going to do. Now, if you use the calculators the right way, obviously, now you do need to know your fundamentals. Like, you still need to know math, right, to make sure that what is coming there is right. So it's important to think through that. And then, there is also the other part is what AI enables anyone, especially a founder, is like the barrier to entry comes down. Anyone can build or write code now with AI. Right? So there is
I never imagined that I would be doing that. Like for a
You
not ever.
might be, Gabby. You might be.
But when you can actually speak to something in English and literally translate that into like you said, the website for the agency or a report for the agency, which it can do.
Oh, I have it in 5 different languages.
Yeah. See, there you go. See,
and I don't even speak those 5 languages.
Can you imagine trying to be able to do that? So it really changed the game in terms of what is possible for you. So every entrepreneur now has the opportunity. Any business, small or big, has different type of scaling challenges. But the principles of making sure what is core and protected to you is key. And the mechanics are simple. It's not hard to do it, but you just need to know how to do it.
Sravan, what do you tell somebody that is scared of using or even reading this book? Because I would be intimidated.
Yeah, so Gabby, like just to pile on what Chandhu mentioned, I would also add on, I think Jensen has this really good saying of like every job has a purpose and a task.
Correct.
AI is going to automate the task piece of it, but not the purpose, right? So I think that's the framing that I usually think about. And there is this quote around, hey, 10 years ago, we said we don't need any radiologists because we have computer vision and it is going to take care of everything. Well, 10 years forward, like that's not true, right? We still have radiologists and they're doing the purpose of the job, which is like helping the patient with right information and right diagnosis and spending more time with them.
Yes.
So I believe there's going to be a lot of the roles that are going to transform and evolve, but at the same time, the purpose of your job is going to be more clearer each day because you're not dealing with this what we call in the book like a routing problem, and a lot of the routine would be automated, so you have more time to focus on the right things.
How do I trust the tool I'm using? Those questions arise so often into my workday. Am I using the right tool? Is this giving me the right answer? Can I get it better? Is it easier if I do it somewhere else?
So I think it's what I would say is the AI models have definitely gotten better. One thing that you kind of have to learn when you, especially working with these large language models, is it is not a deterministic type of solution, right? So it's always trying to figure out. So you probably would have seen if you prompted slightly different ways, you could get different answers.
Yes.
Right. So
and the biases, like don't be biased, give me the positive, negative outcome, like trying to get more information, right?
Exactly. So I think so it also kind of connects back to what you were asking before. The human judgment is still staying with the humans. So you have to look at the outcome of this or the outputs coming out of it to say, hey, and once you figure out here is the best way to prompt, and then there is ways to construct so that you can always get to the right solution because it's trying to understand what you're trying to get, and the more context you give, the better. But you still have to use the human judgment to say.
What do you think of those TikTokers? They're like, copy and paste my prompt is gonna solve your life.
Yeah, that's not exactly going to work. That's
it's going to solve
I
their
wish it
problem.
was that easy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there is people can always copy. I think I think one of the things that that was an interesting point of discussion yesterday was a big differentiation. I truly believe AI is going to get us to do more and more higher order work. For all of us and increase the scale of impact that we can do, to the community around us. So with that, I think a lot of our time will be spent on setting the vision, having the right judgment, being able to understand the risk and balance out the risk, because that's what humans are good at. Right, we do all the Excel exercise because that is a way of getting there to figure out what model works. But if that can be fed to you, then your other side, which is really the higher order side of things, which we are wired to do better, is going to happen.
You said something very interesting, which is the human side of things, right?
Yep.
I was working on Claude, and it sent me to bed. They're like, you're done, you're tired, go to bed. I was like, are you a human or are you a machine? Like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, it's I think the more you interact with these tools, it's trying to understand your patterns. It's trying to understand, see, just like it is trying to see when you are, at least for me, when I engage with it, it is trying to understand the intensity of questions. It has given to me, just so you know, based on how you behave, here are certain things, and I would want to watch out for it. So it's
Oh.
trying to, it's like Sravan mentioned a sparring partner.
Yes.
It's a good sparring partner. A good
Yes.
sparring partner says, hey, you are off today. I think you should just not, continue.
That's
It's just-
amazing.
yeah.
That is so incredible to me. When it comes to, spotting each other, I think like sometimes you also try to help a friend and you don't get the information the right way when you just ask somebody that is walking along with you because they're having kind of like the same journey. But when you have this artificial intelligence giving you different answers that you never imagined, I think it opens up a completely different world. If you're a business owner, what would be the right budget to use or think about when you're operating? Like I read some of the practices that you install here, and I'm thinking about the tokens because most people don't understand that you entering the AI world doesn't mean you can just prompt, infinite. It's gotta be, adequate. And then how much money is enough money and how much money is a lot of money to progress?
Yeah. You want to?
Let me take that. And Gabby, the way I think it, and I will let Chandhu chime in here, is like if we go back to let's say 20 years ago, and if you're building a company, you might be thinking about, hey, I have 5-person team. I need to get them like a laptop or two or a computer, right? Like you are thinking about that as a budget.
Yes.
And then we transition from, well, instead of just having one computer being shared by 5 people,
You need
because
the
computers
network,
are
right?
expensive, we said, you know what, I'm going to give laptop to everybody who is within my company, right? And then we said, at some point, we said, you can actually take your laptop home with you, which means like the cost of some of the computers and the laptops has been so dramatically changing over the years.
Yeah.
And businesses were able to afford that, number one. And number two, it's like table stakes. Like, how do you operate your business without that, right? So I truly believe the cost of tokens, which is, for the audience here, a token could be a word, right? The word is token. The cost of tokens is going to dramatically get reduced in the next couple of years.
As
what we are
people
paying,
get used to
yes.
using it, right?
And you could even compare it to like 3 years ago. Like 3 years ago, the amount we are paying for a token is like almost like more than like 70% lower than what you're paying today.
Wow.
And it is going to happen in the next 10 years. So I think as the models are being commoditized, and you will have the cost of tokens go down, and then similar to how you have like a laptop for your teammate, you will have some sort of AI with them. And which AI, like no one knows. I think we're still in the early phase of like figuring out like who's
So
gonna
it's
be
better perplexity because, for those that don't understand or that have never experienced this, perplexity is a combination of tools within one platform, right?
Correct. That's it.
And you pay for that service and it gives you different types of ways of using it. And then you have your monthly payment that you do with ChatGPT, and then you have the other monthly that you do with Canva. And then, how do you control that, and what would be my best use of those?
So a couple of things that I would say is, eventually you would see, right now there is a lot of fragmentation of different tools, everybody using different models to do different purposes. I do think it will start consolidating. To a few models that's going to be really, good, and some commercial, some open source. And I do want to say, from a tech perspective, there's a lot of open source models that, And
What's your favorite?
I mean, currently, the favorite has been Llama, which is Meta's models, and Mistral. I think Google has just come up with the Gemma 4, which is good. In US, I do think there could be a revamp of the open source side of this thing, because I think it's critical from a technology perspective in terms of leading.
So
this
is
race.
Europe leading?
Unfortunately, China is leading.
China.
Yeah, Europe is behind. China has got a lot of good. You may have heard of DeepSeek
Yeah.
and some of these models that's coming. They're very good models, right? And they've got other considerations before you use them. So for us, we stick to U.S. models, and there is good results that you can get from it. I think the way I look at it is to add on to what Sravan was saying. A bit of the token is kind of like electricity in your So when you get out of your home and if you don't switch off the lights, they're going to keep running and you're going to pay, the meter is running, right? So you kind of have to know, when to use it and when not to use it so you can turn it off. Two, there is also there is this, I think it's a bit driven by the media and these frontier labs. There is a new model coming out every, 2 months.
Yes.
Right? So maybe even shorter. And then we all want to use the new models, but you don't need a jackhammer to do all the work. So some of the earlier versions.
That's a great analogy. You don't need a jackhammer to do it all.
Yeah, you can use earlier versions of models, open source models, to do simple tasks, and you can use the really complex reasoning models. If you're a financial analyst working on forecasting certain things, and you may want to use a very strong Claude model. But if you're doing just to help with your emails, you may not. You can bring down. Actually, there's an option to bring down which model you choose, and that helps. So there is, optimization techniques that you need to bring in, and then there is just like how you would look at your utility bills, just manage, when you're not using it, turning it off, and all of those things that, matters. And then the fragmentation of tools, you need to know what's the best tool that works for you, and, and try to have one that covers the most versus having to pay like a lot of those subscriptions. If you're a little bit more scalable business, most of these companies also have enterprise versions of these platforms, or if you or you could look to build. There are other platform companies coming in that's trying to build a platform by which you can connect to different companies or different models.
When you guys were writing this book, which chapter do you think is going to be the most useful?
I think at least my favorite chapter where we talk about people side of the house, Gabby, and we call this as a governor shift. And what that means is we talk about this idea of in the future, humans are going to be governing the systems and designing the systems, right? Not necessarily being the administrators doing configuring stuff. So that's the whole idea of hey, and this goes back to your question before, how do I know what AI is producing? Is that right or wrong, or is it making it up? I think that's where the human's going to play a lot of role, right? They are looking into, depending on the systems that you have established, the human in the loop is going to be a big factor. So I think the governor shift is a big one that we are seeing. We also talk about the idea of we don't know what the roles and titles going to look like in future. And I don't know if you remember this, Gabby, but a few years ago, prompt engineering was people were claiming that is going to be a real job description.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Now we don't talk about prompt engineering as a job family. So
it's just an everyday task that you do, right?
Yeah, we got to be a little humble and say, hey, we don't really know where this is going. We know directionally where we could go, but if you ask me specific things of what is the job title and job family going to look like, I don't think anyone knows that. So.
Yeah, no, I think my favorite chapter is the same. It's the whole human operating system of this, which is the governorship is important. I mean, I feel like a lot of our work. You mentioned about the different tools, the Canva. I mean, you take any company. I mean, there's more and more tools, and humans are like the middleware. We're copying data from one system, putting it in another system, because that's how your tasks are defined.
Yeah.
Now, if they all can connect, and that's because the intelligence is built into these different systems and the prefixed workflows. But if they can all be connected, then your function becomes governing, one, designing how those should be connected, and two, governing all of that. That changes how you operate. That gives you a lot more space. I mean, if you are truly in customer experience and customer excellence, you can focus on the customer versus being a middleware between systems. That's a change you will see. So hopefully, you don't have to connect between 3 different systems and,
yes.
And an Excel sheet or whatever is needed, and that'll all start to come together.
Well, for everybody that is listening to us, this is such an important topic, and I know that we have a lot more questions. However, the time is limited. But one of the things that I've noticed lately, and I've seen it within iHeart, we've been mentioning also the use of AI to an extent that it devalues some sort of the branding side of things. So we're talking here about business. Let's just have a small discussion about the branding of things and how AI can enhance or can depriment your brand, right? In your case, when you were writing this book, were you thinking also on the visualization of a company as well? Like, what would the creation of a logo, or maybe it's the social media aspect of it, how AI takes the human side sometimes away from it, and you have 6 fingers instead of 4 fingers now, and it just changes how you see a brand, a company, right?
Yeah, and I think so. I'll answer in 2 parts, and we'll definitely get Sravan's perspective on this as well. Like, there is different modalities that we look at, right? So like a large language model is all about text and speech. So when you type in English, it's pretty good at that.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to it's starting to get better at voice. It has gotten a little better on like images and logos and things like that, because it's like, if you look at it 2 years ago, you practically get a human with 6 fingers, like that was like standard, right? But it has improved, like, it's it's getting
Nano
trained.
has done amazing. Yes.
Yeah, it keeps getting trained. So as we think about from a brand and a visualization and all of that, I think it is a great use case. It doesn't take away the creativity that a brand marketer or a visual design specialist comes in, because you still need to have that, kind of the story that you want to say,
right? Yeah.
and then you need to look back at it, because to me the creativity side of it again was a good discussion point yesterday. Was like it's not about can AI do the music or not, but like the good artist is always coming up with the new Lego block, not trying to assemble the Lego block. Right, AI will be good at assembling the Lego blocks, right? But now you take the musician to any artist or any design person, because the brand actually enhances when you figure out the Lego blocks that resonates with the customer. That's going to come from a human.
Okay.
Right? But how it'll get assembled can be
that's an agent's job. Is that right?
That's an agent that can give you a
or
lot more options to assemble it than than a few people, right? So that's the way I look at it.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Chandhu has nailed it, Gabby. The way I see it is, if I need to oversimplify this, I think taste and judgment are going to be the 2 critical factors going forward. There's a technical term called AI slop. And what that means is, if people are just producing stuff with AI and they're not bringing their human side of the house, then everything looks the same, because AI is being
That's what's
on
happening.
all the data. Yeah. At some point, like, you're like, hey, okay, where is the creativity? And when you think about all of the brands, iHeartRadio or any other company, you create a brand because you're bringing who you are and what you're trying to accomplish.
Your human touch.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just using AI for the sake of it, then it results in AI slop. So I think I feel like this is where, like, to Chandhu's example, and also like the judgment and taste are going to be the most important things. And the context, right? Like how you operate, what is your business, who your customers are, what are your objectives. I don't think any of that is going to go away.
And if you're listening, this is what I would take out of all this conversation. This is such an important point. You at home who are listening to all what AI is about, the humanity and the touch and feel does not go away. So you always have to keep your personality within your product or your service or your systems or whatever it is that you're creating, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it just gives you the superpower to do it. It is one of the best augmentational superpowers you can have if you can use it right. But like I said, the new Lego block has to come from us.
Where can we learn more about this? I would have done a workbook along with this. It's so important.
Giving us some ideas. We have thought about it. Look, as first-time authors, this was definitely a process for us to.
Congratulations.
Thank you. To write the book and work with the publisher. So, we're working through it. We have an audiobook come in. We also, I think a workbook is a great idea. We're thinking about a community so people can start, exchanging ideas and things like that too. But,
where can we find you?
Go on Amazon, type in the Enterprise Brain, and you'll see the link and go buy it. And I think we hope it is going to
I'm sure
meaningfully inform you in terms of where the puck is going.
Social media,
yeah, on LinkedIn, Chandhu Nair and Sravan Vadigepalli. So you'll find us there. Feel free to reach out if there are things there, or questions, or want to have follow-up conversations. Look, I think in the book we also say this: we are not trying to predict the future, but we want to kind of put a conversation starter out there, because this is going to evolve. This technology is continuously evolving, but some of the fundamentals that we discussed, like you outlined, Gabby, in terms of the humanity and the human aspect of it, that's going to continue to get amplified, with the superpower, right? So that's not going to change. All of how we do it will continue to evolve, and so stay tuned.
Well, I'm going to share all the information on the description of this podcast, so you can have it on our social media as well. You have to definitely read this book if you're into starting a business, thinking of how to progress in this era, how to step up and definitely make some artificial intelligence moves within your spectrum of your world. It's so challenging to navigate without knowledge, and they're giving you literally a handbook of how to do it in this amazing book. Thank you very much for being here, for sharing your information, for putting together this book, because I'm telling you, it was so insightful for me, especially because sometimes you're thinking way above what your intelligence gets, able to do it. And at the end, you see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Remember that iHeartRadio has this show to bring you tools and resources so you can have advantage and take over our community. Boston is the AI capital of the world, and we try here at Qué Pasa Boston to bring you more knowledge and more innovation. So stay tuned for next week. Don't forget to select Qué Pasa Boston as your favorite podcast, and we'll see you next Sunday.
Thank you.
Cada domingo te traemos las historias, voces y ritmos que hacen única a nuestra comunidad para encontrar